Welcome, friends, to Unmuted Love. I'm your neurobiological trust repair specialist and intrepid host, C. Eshelman. I'm delighted you're here right now, giving yourself the gift of hope. Today, I'm joined by Vibha Arora, a conscious living and parenting coach who helps parents stop fighting surface behavior and start shifting what's underneath it. She's also a contributor to a new anthology called Raising Teens Who Talk to You. Isn't that novel? And with a background in marriage and family therapy and nearly 2 decades of experience, Vibha is known for helping people uncover the patterns that keep them stuck and then actually do something about it. She blends positive discipline and conscious parenting into her signature approach, control-free parenting, which sounds simple, but as you'll hear, asks a lot more of us parents in the best way possible. If you've ever wondered what it's really like to parent from awareness instead of control, this conversation is going to stretch you in all the right directions. So welcome, Vibha. I'm so happy to meet you and have you be here to talk to my listeners today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's going to be fun.
So when you say control-free parenting, a lot of my parents hear this. So what? I'm just going to let my child do whatever they want to do? So what does control-free look like at 8 p.m. when a child is screaming their head off, refusing to go to bed, and blowing past every single limit you have? I started with the tough questions.
Yeah. No, I'm here for it. Let's just go right in. So I think the concept of control-free parenting is really about, I teach my clients and, people that come to me for parenting coaching as well as classes. Our first session is really about the circle of control, which is super, super important to understand. The circle of control really gives us a zoomed out perspective of what we actually have control of. And there's only 3 things inside of that circle of control. That's your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions. Nowhere in there is your kids' thoughts, your kids' feelings, or your kids' actions. Because they are human beings, we do not have control over any human beings, no matter how small or how tall they are, or whether they live in our house or not. So I think that's the first real wraparound, the shift that parents, I encourage them to make and understand. Once you understand that you actually don't have control, it can be very disarming because we've been fed this idea, this conditioning that we're supposed to have control. And it's just not true. Even when they were infants, you can't make an infant sleep or eat or, those are just things that are out of our control. And I think once parents understand that, and it doesn't change as they get older, once we can wrap our heads around that, then we shift into, okay, well, if we don't have control, what do we have? We have influence. We have the ability to set boundaries. And like you talked about limits, right? We have abilities to set up choices and consequences, things that match in order to create a discipline system that is based not on fear, which is what control is, but actually through connection and conversation.
Yeah, I like how all that sounds. I talk about that too quite a bit.
Yeah.
Our listeners here are generally adoptive parents or foster parents.
Yeah.
And most of our kids didn't just resist control. They survived a lot of harm and chaos.
Sure. Yeah.
So how do you do conscious parenting with a child whose brain doesn't trust connection in the first place? Don't connect with me. Yeah.
Yeah. I understand there's going to be a lot of resistance. And I think that being patient with yourself as a parent, knowing that this isn't going to happen overnight, this is the long journey, right? And for adoptive parents, I can understand how sometimes it might take a little longer. It's not necessarily age and stage based. It's also condition based and environment based and what they're coming from, what they're coming to. So I think really allowing yourself as a parent to be gentle with yourself, have grace and compassion for yourself and for where the child is, rather than having these notions of everything being like this rigid, tight schedule. I know schedules are important, and also in the space of living, sometimes they don't work, not right away, but we can work towards them.
Well, that makes sense to me. You focus a lot on root level transformation in the parent. Mm-hmm. So what's the pattern you see most often that parents don't really want to face, but once they do, everything starts to shift a little for them?
That's a great question. Yeah. The one that comes top of mind right away is when a parent realizes that what they're doing is for them and not for the child. It's so that they look a certain way, so that they feel a certain way, so that they can sleep with themselves at night knowing they've checked the boxes without taking into consideration the unique personality and situation of the unique child that's in front of them. So once a parent realizes, oh, this trigger or this activation is actually my stuff, not my kid's stuff, that's when we dive into the conscious parenting piece where we look underneath those triggers. There's some healing for the parent. They're able to release and surrender that. Then they can come back online and actually parent the child in front of them.
I love that. I like seeing through a lens that actually sees the child and the child's brain, the child's experience, lived experience, who's actually in front of you rather than parenting the one you wish you had.
That's right. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I want to poke on this just a little bit more around conscious parenting. Can conscious parenting accidentally become like permissive parenting or too soft for kids who actually need stronger external structure to feel safe?
Actually, I don't think so, because there's nothing in conscious parenting that's permissive. It's actually structured. There are boundaries. This comes from the teaching of Dr. Shefali, who is one of my mentors and who I've studied under and with and learned a lot from. And one of the things that she always talks about is the difference between sand boundaries and stone boundaries. But boundaries are still there, right? Sand boundaries, meaning they can be some flex, because this is life we're living and it's not always a perfectly created, do this, do this, do this. So those ones can be kind of a little floaty, which maybe some people would call permissive. I call it just being human and understanding the human condition and, life changes. And then the stone boundaries, those are like health and safety. Those don't change. There's nothing permissive about it. So yeah, I don't see it as permissive. I could see how a parent could think that it means hands-off parenting. It's also not. It's actually very much hands-on, even more so because you're doing the deep work with yourself.
Yeah, I think the notion of accommodating your child's regulation, accommodating their lagging skills, accommodating their dysmaturity in the moment of dysregulation can kind of feel boundaryless, like you're having to drop your boundary all the time in order to help the child move through a dysregulated state. Do you have some thoughts about that?
What's the other option? Enforcing it, using force, using strictness, using, fear tactics, threatening, taking away things, punishment, all of that stuff, that's not going to work. In the moment, I understand, and I have parents say this to me, they're like, I just feel like I'm always giving in. I just feel like I'm never winning the battle. And there's something in that, right? It's not a battle. It's not about winning. It is about, again, the child in front of you in that moment and what they need. And as the parent, I think it's part of our showing up in consciousness of putting aside, I need this kid to go to bed at 8 so that I can watch my show, which is important and I'm all for it. And maybe it's at 8:30 tonight because maybe that kid needs a little extra something from you today. And that's okay.
Yeah, I think most of my listeners here today would say, yeah, I'm pretty much always putting myself aside and giving a little extra all the time to the point where there's no life left in my life.
And that's where we get dangerous, right? That's where we get burnout. That's where the frustration comes in. I think it's so important as a parent to fill yourself first, not last. Because you need to have a full tank in order to go all the circles that you're going to be going through that day, through that week, through that month. If we're driving around with an empty tank of gas, of course it's going to feel depleted, like we're constantly not able to get where we want to go. And I know it's difficult and parents are busy and life is happening, but just having a practice in which you set aside even a little bit of time to refill yourself first. Like with bedtime, I know bedtime is often challenging for a lot of parents and kids. Perhaps you have, as a parent, a ritual before the bedtime ritual with your kid that fills you up before you go into that, whether it be, taking a few deep breaths, getting outside for a fresh breath of air, washing your face, whatever it is to regulate yourself, to fill yourself first before going into that interaction, I think would be helpful.
Yeah. Do you hear that, listeners? Vibha and I are on the same page. Right? I'm always telling you, the bottom of your foundation of your pyramid is all the kids' needs, and yours are at the teeny tiny top, where when there's a little bit of moment, you fit yourself in around the edges. That's not the right version of reality. We got to make the foundation at the bottom all about you, all about strengthening you, supporting you, nurturing you. Find your joy, find your peace, find your regulation before you jump in and try and support your child, because then you actually have something to give. So I
Correct.
think we're on the same page about that for
Yeah,
sure.
and the fact is that that's counterintuitive and it's countercultural to what we've been taught and conditioned to believe, that as a parent we're supposed to sacrifice our needs. Okay, we're done with that. That doesn't work. It doesn't work for us as the parent or for the kid. So yeah, flipping it on its head, I think, is going to be really helpful.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. A lot of my parents are doing deep inner work already.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the thing, their child is still super dysregulated,
Mm-hmm.
often quite reactive, rejecting them sort of at every turn.
Yeah.
How do you help parents not lose hope when their child's growth isn't immediately evident?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I feel for them. I understand. I have empathy and compassion. And the reminder that I like to give parents, regardless of the age and stage of the kid and what's going on, is something that Dr. Laura Markham shared many, many years ago. I was at a conference and I heard her say this and it stuck. It's Q-tip, which is quit taking it personal.
Yeah.
As much as it feels like, when the kid is screaming, I hate you, you're the worst mom ever, how can I not take it personal? And also knowing it's not personal, right? I think that that's super helpful. The other thing is, you were saying it's not happening immediately. Yeah, that's the practice of patience. That's the practice of surrender. That's the practice of being able to observe things as they unfold. And again, going back to the circle of control, I can create influence. I can set it up in the environment so that it works the way I want it to. And also releasing the idea that I can control the outcome. In this case, control the kid.
Yeah. Hey, how did you get started in this business? I didn't ask you that, and it wasn't written anywhere that I could read about you.
Oh, well, that's a good question. It was a long circle. It was a lot of back and forth. I've had many iterations, I think, in life. And at one point, I had gone back to get my teacher's credential because there was a teacher shortage in California. And I was like, oh, I like teaching. I can do that. And I got my teacher's credential, and then they didn't need teachers anymore. And what I realized in being in the school atmosphere, teaching social and emotional skills, is that I enjoyed helping these kids more with what was going on at home than what was going on in math class. Like, I was supposed to be helping them get caught up at, middle school or whatever. And I was like, there's so much going on at home. And then I went back and got my master's in marriage and family therapy. And that's kind of how I ended up here. Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually mirrors what happened for me. I actually started out to be a teacher, and I went to work my first year and I realized, oh my gosh, these kids are suffering. They're struggling. I just want to talk to them.
Yeah.
And so I went back to school and got my master's degree in the same arena and left teaching completely. And I'm never looked back. I love teaching. I love teachers, but I really love this much, much more because I feel like I can actually really be much more helpful. It's much more helpful than teaching grammar, which is what I was kind of stuck doing.
Yeah. And there was something about the school system for me that just felt incredibly suffocating. And very admin heavy. And so this way I get to be real. And then getting my master's, I was going towards licensure. You need 3,000 hours before you can sit for the licensure exam. And I got to 2,480, not that I was counting. And I was like, you know what? I don't want to do licensed therapy. I want to do coaching instead. And around the same time, I started teaching positive discipline courses in person. And then obviously when the pandemic hit, moved online. And since there it's just been full steam ahead.
It's funny. We've had some parallel living here in a way, because I did get my license, but during the course of it, I was like, well, if it doesn't work out, that's okay, because I don't really care about the license.
Yeah.
I am happy that I have a private practice and a clinic, and I have been able to help adopted families for years, and I'm grateful for that. But also now I spend much more time coaching because I'm seeing parents all over the country and all over the world. And so I couldn't do that with just my license.
That's right. Yeah. Lots more flexibility.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the parent who is completely tapped out. I don't know. Do you think someone can actually access their conscious parenting, higher brain self when they're dysregulated, or they're not just dysregulated, but depleted themselves? No. And I know we just talked about the flipping the pyramid.
Yeah, it's easier to say than harder to do. I was a single mom when my kids were 6 weeks and almost 3 years old. And when you don't have resources and you're exhausted, for me to try and think about self-care and filling myself, like No,
right?
it's not practical. It's
Mm-hmm.
I stand by it as something that is going to be helpful, but to your point, it's not always accessible. And I think that that's why I would put, if I were to put an order to things, I would put positive discipline, really learning what positive discipline is, because that's more kid focused. And then as you get some foundation and some bearings underneath you, then shifting into some more conscious parenting. And I'll be honest, I mean, The Conscious Parent, the book by Dr. Shefali, it is a fabulous book. And even where I was in my parenting journey, it was one of those things where you can only read a few pages at a time and you just have to go, whoa, and you have to process. So again, you have to give yourself a lot of time. And in the moment, I think for where we're at as parents, with young kids or even school age kids, I think positive discipline, which is by Dr. Jane Nelson, gives us some real core foundational structural how-tos. I would start there and then weave in the other parts.
One of the things that I spend a lot of time supporting parents to do is find little glimmers of nurture, little glimmers of restoration, little glimmers of resetting yourself throughout your day, every day. And I mean little,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
one big deep breath, one cup of tea, one gratitude moment, right? These little glimmers of joy and delight and kindness to yourself. And what I notice is that really does rejuvenate people. It doesn't make you less tired. You're going to be tired because being a parent is tiring sometimes. Well, always actually, but we're not talking about tired that way, from a long day hanging out with your kids and being active and cooking dinner and cleaning the house and doing all the things. You're going to be tired. But do you have to be depleted? Do you have to be emotionally empty? And I think no. But I sure know that when my kids were younger, I did feel depleted a lot. And I actually had to learn how to think about things in a different way so that I could enjoy my life and then enjoy my kids. So what do you do to keep yourself really alive and vibrant and restored?
Well, that's a great question. I am very fortunate now that my kids are grown and flown. I call them kidults because they're out in the world and I have freedom. I love to travel. And because I have my coaching business online, I literally can see clients from wherever I am in the world. So travel always replenishes and rejuvenates me. And on the daily basis, I think it's the idea of sneaking in just a little, right? It doesn't have to be a whole afternoon. It can be just a little step outside. For me, I teach breath work and I'm very rooted in the foundation of the different types of breath and nervous system regulation through somatics. So sometimes it's just about a shake, like shaking it off between clients. Sometimes it's about the 3 deep breaths, with the 4-4-6 tempo. And what I started doing, gosh, I think it's been probably over a year or so. Ross Gay, I don't know if you're familiar with him. He has a book called The Book of Delights. He has had since then different books, but I heard about him on the We Can Do Hard Things podcast. He talks about how he sat down and wrote every day, right, for his delight. So what I've been doing with my clients and with my friends is we look for a delight of the day. Just one thing that just makes you smile, that just makes you exhale. And we'll take a picture of it and send it to one another through text. And it actually rewires the brain. It's focusing on that little delight, even though the rest of the day was the rest of the day. But you've got that one purple flower that bloomed overnight, and I've captured it. And then I keep those all in an album. So whenever you're like, I don't have time to even find a delight of the day, you can just scroll through. And that's been really helpful for both me and my clients.
I love that so much. I'm going to suggest that to my group of parents. I think they will like to share little glimmers of delight. Delight is my word for last year. And then when I got to this year, I'm like, I love delight last year so much. I'm going to keep it. So this year's delight is my word as well.
Yeah. I love the word
I really
delight.
do. When I think about the word delight, I shine right up.
Yeah. Yeah. It's little sparks of joy. I think delight's a great word. And the other one I'm leaning into a lot this year, just accidentally, I guess, is whimsy. Whimsical, just for the heck of it, just something that's out of the ordinary, that's connected to delight also.
Yeah, whimsy is something that really gets lost when you are in the workaday childcare world, right? Whimsy can really get lost.
Yeah. And yet you have such immediate access to it through your kids, right? If we allow ourselves, because they are whimsical creatures by nature. So if we allow ourselves to just be in their world, I think it's right there. It's right there for the taking.
Vibha, I'm so happy to have you join me today, but how can our listeners get a hold of you if they would really like to suck up more of your brilliance?
Oh, that would be lovely. I'm pretty easy to find on Instagram or Facebook with just a direct message, and you can look under #iParentPlus. That'll be the quickest way to get you there. And I think in the show notes, if you could put in the actual address, that would probably be helpful. And that's the easiest way to reach me. They can also, of course, email me, and I'll give you my email address to share with your listeners as well.
Okay, that's wonderful. Let me ask you one last question before we, call it a day.
Sure.
So if a parent listening here feels like, you know what, Vibha, I've tried everything and my child still doesn't let my love in. Mm-hmm. What's the first thing you gently challenge them to look at without blaming them, of course, because we're no shame, no blame around here?
Yeah, I'm all for that. What comes up for me is a word that for a long time I called the S word because I resisted it so much. Surrender.
Yeah.
That's right. The exhale, the surrender, I don't have control of it. All I can do is keep showing up as my best self, doing my best, and trust in the process and the unfolding of whatever is lifing is going to do what it needs to do. And that's a tough one. It's a tough one, no matter the age and stage of your kids, no matter the age and stage of your own conscious development. It's just a tough thing to embrace, but I really think it's the biggest game changer.
I love that word surrender. It's one of my favorites, and I haven't used that in a while. So I appreciate your saying it. I have let that go out of my vocabulary, but it is a big part of parenting, right?
Yes, for sure.
Surrendering the outcome because you don't know what's going to happen.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing yourself with my listeners today. I really, really appreciate your time.
Well, thank you so much. It was so fun to be here.
So if you're a parent listening and no one has told you yet today that you're amazing, well, let me be the first. You are amazing. Thank you for listening to Unmuted Love, the place parents come to feel lifted up in love when more than love is required. So I'll see you in the next episode of Unmuted Love.